That's what 2020 is bringing to 2021. The shattered reality in your way out is that you choose to not be the experiment. And you know what it sucks? Is the experiment that they've been playing, and it's a war. Not only is it a foreign war, but it's an intertwined, intertangled, that's going to be too tangled mess that there's been countries that have been playing ball together for power. And in 2021, it's going to be starting to be revealed on who those countries were and that they were playing an experiment on people. Sorrow cycle of the fucking eclipses, dealing with TSA, dealing with 9/11, dealing with all that shit, dealing with war. You don't also want to be in another country when war hits. We're in a Mars Aries on New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, for the whole world. I don't know if you remember, but in 2019 and in 2018, when I was doing the New Year stuff, half the part of the world had Mars in Pisces at one point, and then half the world had Mars in Aries. I think that was the 2018 one. When all the planets were like coming in their own. No, that was 2019. You have to remember, though, that everybody on the planet's going to have Mars in shadow at 27 degrees. That means that there's like this weird, we're not over the whole war thing yet. And it's in the Mars retrograde cycle that brought on America entering into the war that made World War II World War II. Because, yes, there was a bunch of countries battling, but World War II was when America came in that created the Allies against the axis of evil. And that's what we're entering into in 2021. Do I believe World War III is possible? I would give it a fucking 80 to 90% chance, yes. It's just not going to be, because in any world war, it doesn't look the same. World War I was done in trenches, and there was a pandemic. But, you know, they still let them fight the war, and they shit in their pants, and they put food in each other's mouth without washing them, and they didn't die of the plague back then in 1917 and 1918 in the fields of France, in the fields of Germany, in the fields of Europe. Very different war. You fought all day, all night, all week, all month, all year for 300 yards of space. World War II was all about invading countries and taking it over. It was kind of creepy, but it was also about camps. It was also about, you know, major countries coming together in bigger ways with technology. World War III. World War III is going to be more about the collective against which people and higher governments are here to take over the people. And if you're going to be, and I'm going to say it, I call South Node and Sag the dunce cap. Patterns seem to happen in life, but there's something about the fear that's going to be projected here in the 2020s of, especially in 2020 of, is this real, or is there some backdoor story to this, or is this programmed in a certain way, or is this pre-planned from a human point of view and not so much of kind of a, whether you want to call that the natural law or nature itself or God. And another part of this is going to be beliefs. The beliefs are going to become rampant. The amount of frequency from planetary aspects and consolidation, meaning conjunction point, but using kind of more of an easier term to understand of like potency, if they're all in the same place in the sky, in an area that goes back to 1283 and 4, which was what brought on plagues. Every time Pluto and Saturn get together in Capricorn, they bring on a plague right after. Right after the 1284 one, we started to get the plagues of the Dark Ages in the 1300s. Then in the 1517, 1518, right in there. 1500s and 1600s, plague. So, not to scare people, but there is a plague coming, but I think it's a new plague. And the people that followed their destinies survived. Don't fall for the show. You don't have to be part of it. Go make your own show. That's the best part about this.
Go make your own show. Follow the law. I'm not telling you to break the law, but energetically I'm telling you that it's going to feel like you are, but actually the truth is that that's how powerful the force is that's trying to make you believe that there are laws on top of you that there are not, especially if you as a human being. Be smart. Be a rat. Think with Mercury and Gemini. It's a maze. Walk through there. Don't fall for the cheese that has the fucking traps on it, which is going to be this like hopeful energy that it's all going to be okay and just keep sitting there and you're going to be able to. No, go look at your environment constantly. Are more people in masks? Or more places separating everybody? Or more places putting barriers up? Are fucking things that are being shown to you on television now about this is what planes of the future are going to look like? Are you really thinking that they're just like, yeah, we're going to open right back up and let you live your normal life again? No! It will be a revolution that will change things, and it's going to be a long one, I know. I appreciate you all very much. I love you all very much. I know that there's a lot of major crazy predictions in here, but my main thing is not even a prediction. It is a calling to get the fuck in or out of wherever you know right now you must be and not be.
There is so much fear-mongering on both sides of everything right now that we're going to have to find a way to stop castrating the world itself and truly come into a place of looking at things from both sides and finding the best solutions. And I feel that the energy that within yourself is going to be tested a lot, because it's going to be a time to where you're going to have to start to do research on your own. You're going to have to deprogram what we have been taught and reprogram yourself, and you can include the things you were taught, you can include new things that you learn, but the information era is important for you to soak up. Going to old libraries is important. Actually doing research for yourself. I mean, we are moving into an age and into a time in the 2020s where we are going to see the battles and the debates, whether, artificial intelligence and how that's going to look. I mean, self-driving cars, and what will it feel like to not have the control of driving your own car anymore? What would it feel like to lose the control of which job you can choose? What would it be like to lose the control of who you can pick as a mate, whether that's genetic or because they're going to genetically test you and that you don't make a good match that way. There's going to be a lot of things that, you're going to set up the downfall or the rise of this world. And you are the conduit of that. And that's what to prepare for. That's what to prepare for in not buying into fear. Because if you buy into the fear, you're going to realize that the choices you're starting to make without doing the full research, without actually being there, and this is going to bring up like a lot of untrustworthy energy around people. Like who to trust, what to trust. I mean, Orwellian, George Orwell, the Orwellian 1984 understanding is happening. And this is going to be a time for us to really realize that this new energy is something we've never been into. Are we really going to create our own prison of our reality? Or is this the precursor to imprisoning humanity and through fear and creating and becoming our own police guards of ourselves in a really weird way, and also shifting our governments into a way that forget about freedom? And that's something that's not coming from a political place. It's coming from an understanding of, as an astrologer, of looking at the future, that the Aquarian energy that is coming in 2020 and that is coming in through the whole 2020s, as Pluto in 2023 and then comes back in 2024, will move at the exact position to where not the Constitution, but the Declaration of Independence was signed, as that's where Pluto was at that last degree of Capricorn, coming into Aquarius and coming back. Like, there is a revolution happening on the planet. But, revolutions can fail too. And I think they can fail when they have fear. And this is my last bomb drop before we go into the charts. But you know what? Sometimes this is better than just doing all the charts. But I like to give the evidence, and I'll go fast through the evidence. But I'm going to give you the biggest bomb drop. You're going to need to make sure you understand your environment, because if you don't, money right now is going to be the hardest thing production of goods, production of things is not coming back for a while. The cycles, not only in using the markets, but using astrology with Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius, everybody's going to want to have something, and Uranus and Taurus is like, no. This is where people start making their own shoes again. Remember I said, get ready for duct tape life. You already see on this holiday, which ironically enough, right, we weren't getting anything and there was no boats coming into Long Beach Harbor, the biggest harbor that brings in the goods that goes throughout America. And then somehow in September, it all showed up for Christmas to keep the economy going. We got to remember the US dollar, which rules all currency around the world to be traded in, that's also backed by the oil and the oil reserves that's traded too. Oh man, we're coming into way different waters here, especially dealing with countries, different elements, Jupiter in Aquarius, Jupiter in Pisces, then retrograding back, Mercury retrograde in Aquarius, Mercury retrograde in Gemini, Mercury retrograde in Libra. Talk about diplomacy issues. Well, at the same time, I said, yes, Jupiter and Saturn are moving in an air sign, there's diplomacy. But talk about issues, though, and rethinking things. And then when you deal with production quality, and you see Venus definitely going to be going through quite a lot, especially with Venus retrograde in Capricorn at the end of the year of 2021. Oh, yeah, that's definitely going to be like, did I try and just go be a redcoat and just jump over and go to another country and think I could win? Or do you think you're Alexander the Great? That really worked out for really good for him, right? Like, it worked out really good. No, it did not work out good for him. And actually, the whole understanding of Alexander the Great and taking over the greatest empire that he ever built was how divisiveness was created. Because then once he was gone, everybody started fighting and saying, no, this is my place. No, I'm in charge of this. No, I'm in charge of that. No. Do you really want to be in a world that's going to be so unpredictable? Because when we're dealing with Jupiter and Saturn, the two biggest energies, squaring Uranus, talk about an unpredictable year, fuck. And so to prepare yourself is to stop, escaping. But to be here. Because the people who are going to be escaped, and this looks at your friends, this looks at the partners you're with, because if you're going to just form an escapism tactic, well, when it shows up, and you're not here to help or do the work or be aware of what's going on and it gets chaotic, you get kind of thrown into a truck, and next thing you know, you have, I don't know, maybe a gun in your hand, or maybe you have something in your hand that you don't want, or you're put into a place that you don't even want to be, because you were not paying attention and you were lost, and you also kind of fell into this. And this is going to be a time of real understanding deep in yourself, where you have to use up until January of 2020 to do some really deep work on your beliefs, being open, taking away stigmas, and also learning your escape mechanisms are not positive when they are trying to just leave this place more, to feel better, because there's something that it doesn't fulfill fully. But the war, though, is also, when you're dealing with Uranus, you're dealing with foreign energies. And when you're dealing with Jupiter, you're dealing with countries. Jupiter square Uranus. Countries and foreign energies not getting along and trying to realign. And with Uranus and Taurus being the center point of that square, and that's exactly at the point when you start to see Stalin and Hitler come together to come into, okay, yeah, we do want to take over this country. Let's go do it together. And then backstab each other. Actually, it was Hitler that did, and then go after the USSR. Like, that Saturn-Uranus shit. You got to know who you're tight with people, and you don't want to go through experiments. There's going to be experiments out there, and you have to know your worth and value and go, is it worth me not going to a fucking concert in 2021 because Ticketmaster says I need to have something? Is it worth it to go through an experiment? All this shit, whether you want to fucking admit it or not, is experimental. Experiments go bad. Do you think it's ironic? I think it was yesterday. SpaceX, which is trying to get people to Mars. Did nobody see that the fucking new SpaceX, I think that thing's going to be meant to carry people, blew up on landing on Earth, like fucking destroyed? The last time I saw something like that was Challenger, which was a horrible situation. These are going to be experiments gone bad. That's going to shatter the reality. Which I think is a good thing, because how do you get through this? Your own independent worth and value, and whether or not you're going to follow, or you are going to innovate and co-create with people with similar values. And people that are going to experiment on the fronts of bringing the best that they can to move forward in life with making sure that it's quality. Because what does Taurus rule? Like, if you go to the store, like Walmart, and you buy the Walmart brand or you buy the original brand, guess what? The Walmart brand sucks. And anybody that tries to tell me that the Walmart brand is better than the, like a big major brand, that's just you in your head saying that because of the shadow that you just want to save money. We all know the Walmart towels suck. We go to Bed Bath & Beyond and buy some towels. Fuck, that shit's different. It's like hotels, right? A 5-star hotel or a motel. If you're trying to tell me that, well, it's just a place to sleep, well, you know, it's a lot different experience. They're going to be using international travel. They're going to be using a lot of different places. And unfortunately, they're going to use schools, and they're going to use kids in schools because they're already doing that, right? With testing kids to leave school and doing all that kind of stuff. That's why do you also think that on the FDA, when they just did in America the board to, you know, tell the FDA, there's a board first and then it goes to the FDA to approve, 4 people said no, and their main concern was children 16 to 17. These are the ages where you go right before you go to college, but it's also the age before you go into the military. And I've been saying this one a long time, that international foreign relations, look at China. Even now, the press finally admitted with Hunter Biden that, oh yeah, no, there is an investigation. They're looking into his China ties, but they denounced that and they censored that. And I'm not coming from a right perspective. I'm just saying, like, this is fact, right? Like, there's a lot of things that were suppressed with Capricorn that are going to shatter your reality in 2021. Or were you paying attention and that you were able to look at that? Or were you just in the belief system of, oh, you know what? The people, like everybody, that's impossible and that can't happen. And I believe that won't happen. I believe. No, it's a questioning 2021. And do you want to keep going?
Weird. We had Mercury retrograde in Pisces. Like we couldn't, you know, it was all too hard to see, right? This shit's going to be fucking in your face. Now, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. The nodes change. It's a shift of a whole nodal pattern, and it's the one that brought on the TSA. It's the one that brought out terror alerts, orange, red. Don't get on a plane. Don't go to your fucking... You know, don't go to, this state needs to not go to the fucking movie theaters this weekend because fucking, it could be bombed. And it's a debate that comes down to Pluto and Capricorn, which is where we were when we did the whole Constitution, or when we did the Declaration of Independence. That this is coming down to, do we want to still follow freedom and the Declaration of Independence and be a country based off a republic, right? Or is it trying to become these pacts? And is it trying to become also this whole idea of we can do what we want to do because we believe in science, which that science is creating slavery because we're going to gut everybody in those states from working because we're the big corporations. And what's going to happen is even the people in those states are not going to be happy unless they offer him something else. Well, who's got all the gold? Those packs. And what do? They're in bed with China. Do they still stay with China and keep building there? Or do they leave China and have them all become enslaved camps and start building and have better jobs and basically create these, like, we got food for you, we got everything. Remember, California is the 5th biggest economy in the world. And as far as food producing and everything, like, it can compete with the whole of America. It doesn't need it. It's got livestock, it's got fucking corn, it's got fucking fruits, it's got walnuts, it's got trees, it's got every fucking thing it needs. It's got mountains, it's got ocean, it's got oil rigs, it's got fucking everything that it needs. New York has everything that it needs with every connection in the financial market and the financial industry and how all corporations are traded on Wall Street. Public corporations. Like, I can right now, like, you know, as my life, I can look right now and I have money on Wall Street, and it's very simple for me to go to my TD Ameritrade and just see, how did the stock market do today? Did I make money? I fucking did make money today. And I was down in the hole, and somehow I came out of the hole today. On my phone, which is owned by California, which is being sold by a stock fucking exchange, by me making money based off other people fucking buying and selling, and because there is no Vegas right now, where do you think Vegas and gambling is? It's Wall Street. And where's all this money being made right now? Who got bailed out in the last 3 weeks with the most money? All the major corporations that are on Wall Street? Where did the Fed inject a shit ton of money? In fucking buying public company stock. But how come? Okay, some people got their $1,200 checks, but not everybody, and all the small businesses are barely getting any of their money still. This is all to gut the system. It's all to do it. You have to remember that I'm showing you history. History does not repeat itself. You have the war secretary. The war secretary. But this is where you got to flip it. Is it really from the federal, or is it from the state now? Is it from these state governors and their fucking lieutenant governors and their stuff starting to fuck around and do all this crazy shit and just saying we're going to do this, and it's mayors now of cities that are coming out and doing all this shit? And you watch, it's always weird because they're all aligning in weird ways, okay? And what do they do when it comes to Neptune at the end of this cycle, and especially at the deacon, you start seeing them all band together, and then they all form this whole new government, and they all form this whole new way of life. You need to think about where the fuck you are. And if you're down with that shit, I'm not telling you which one's right or wrong, because that's up to you. If you're red or blue, that's up to you if you're going to be in that kind of thing. And you need to see beyond that for the first time, because it's interconnected to international elements, especially in those blue states, right? Because those are all backed by Chinese investors. Those are all backed by producing the products that make them so big, that is from China. And why do you think there's a whole thing going against China right now? An investigation into the lab or whatever. And that's all the smoke screen. That's all the cover, because even America itself just wants to have everybody being produced, because even the whole restructuring of the roads, which are going to want to do what? Electric roads with electric cars and all that shit? Who's going to build that? It's like the railroad. All this right now is a setup. You think you're going to go to Canada? Justin Trudeau just got caught because the Canadian Armed Forces denied their own prime minister of allowing the Chinese to train. And we were seeing those pictures at the beginning of this year, and people said that we were all conspiracy theorists when there were pictures of Chinese soldiers training in Canada right above the American border. That actually fucking happened. And then in the news yesterday, December 10th of 2020, then that's when fucking they switched the news and Justin Trudeau and talking about the vaccine to get rid of that story. That fast.
You're not slothful, you're not envious, you're not sitting at the bottom and feeling like you're excommunicated and you're sitting in the wrath of, we can go on all day. And I'm actually break down all 9 purgatory elements much better. I just wanted to show you the glyphs of it first. And we're not going to go to this yet, but I think it's interesting that the moon at the bottom, and more importantly, the breakers of the vows, that's an emotional situation, right? Like I said, you have to get through the emotion of the inconsistency that can bring you down of life. Like, it's like whether that's a relationship, like for me, the emotional inconsistency of relationships in my life. I don't let that get to me. I don't even look at it as inconsistent. I look at it as like fucking, maybe it's my Pluto and Libra square the sun and Leo exact. And we're on a sun square Pluto day. You know, like I'm like, okay, I got a lot of love and I like relationship, but it's also like, you know, is there anything that's really all intense and will ever work or will ever not like try to fucking kill me literally or persecute me, or you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things, but it's like not letting yourself emotionally get entrenched, and you have to break the vows of purgatory. You have to break the vows also of what they're saying on earth, because I have shown you plenty of times in alchemy who sits on the earth. The monkey sits on the earth that only looks at the earth. The Fauci that is not looking at the divine on how to fix this problem. That breakers of the vows are not sinners. Breakers of the vows are those that are in the light. Because the vows that people are committing to right now on this planet are purgatory vows. And what's below purgatory is hell. It's the hidden element of hell. It's the, you know, you get another chance. But to me, it's the dark's way of being like, let's just get you to the carrot to paradise on earth, which you still then have to do all this other work that most people will never do because they will never break the vows of the earth that they were programmed into. And that's the dark night of the soul of what 2012 and the end of the world was. The end of the world, the end of the earth, and the vows that you were programmed into. And that's the beginning of the whole story that we have entered, because if you notice, and I've gone into this, whether it's the changing of the age from Pisces into Aquarius, or whether it's the fucking Mayan prophecy, or whether it's the Higgs hydrogen collider of 2012 and playing with atoms and smashing them together and fucking up our whole entire earth and maybe putting us onto a different multidimensional earth. I can go on for fucking days, but that breaker of the vows is not the breaking of the vows like a marriage of love, but the breaking of the vows of an adherence and giving away your sovereignty to the false earth that is not the vows of the divine. I need some Sprite after that. I think I'm channeling my ancestors today, the Reverends. Not my Quakers. I think they showed up to the Quaker Hall meetings and said some nice things and went home, you know. Maybe, I don't know. All right. Here's another version of it. This is actually like a Earth version that was painted of it. But if we can zoom in, Craig, to the left one, this is the same one, but just a different version. If we can go to the bottom, right? Like this is just like the layers. So if we can then slide to the right, so we can kind of use the left slide of these layers and go to the picture to the right. So the excommunicated are always at the bottom of the castle. I'm going to use a different way to look at it. So the ones that are on the docks, the street workers and farmers and the people that are, so if we look, keep looking to the right by the water's edge and down at the bottom, you know, it's the people that are this is how the dark is looking at you. This is how this crazy world is trying to look at people as they're on top of their Babel fucking hill, right? That they're in paradise and you're just fucking down there doing all of the work for them. You're the Amazon filler for the company that's allowed to operate when nobody else was allowed to. You're the worker that, you know, makes all the food while you go to the French Laundry and eat it and tell everybody to wear a mask, but you're fucking sitting there with no mask on and having the time of your life and drinking wine and having your fucking truffle soup, you know? I was expecting Craig to be like, fuck yeah. But, you know, this is crazy ways to look at it. So if we back out and go up to the top, and we'll just go to the top, we'll just like go up to like understanding the sloth. We'll go to the slothful, because I feel like that's the weirdest world, right? Like that's deficient love, which I think we're all in a lot of that feeling, right? If we feel like I think we do jump out of purgatory and into purgatory a lot right now. So if we cut across and try and find that slothful, which would be the middle basically to the top, right? Oh yeah, it's that empty hole in the middle of what would be something that is complete. So it's that hole that's within your soul and your heart that you either continue to hold on to in your life or not, that does not complete the circle. Like if you look at the zodiac, or you look at your whole entire body, or you look at your life, and the moon represents the chest, that even in the middle of this depiction of what purgatory is, I was able to show you, nobody's done this before, by the way, that this hole is the hole in your chest, the hole in your emotions, because you are still holding on to laziness, just getting through life. When you're in that space, you have a hole in your life. You're not complete. You will never get out of that purgatory. That's why it is, I think, the hardest level that people get stuck in right now. And if you follow the moon as it's coming on top of the North Node down the ladder of contemplation constantly, it's that you emotionally are contemplating too much all the time, and you're not doing anything about it, and you feel left empty because you just lived in your head. I'm using astrology now to mix it with Dante's purgatory, to mix it with where we're at actually in Dante's stars, and actually the geocentric universe and the cosmology of Dante's work and the ladder of contemplation and the actual ways out of that purgatory and the exact timing that he was around and alive and did this work that we just lived through in 2020. That's what I enter 2021. That's literally how I'm connecting all of this. So this is not just coming out of my ass. This is literally coming from what the divine is doing and what the divine is channeling and what the divine has shown through history, and actually using astrology to get back to that exact place from a person who lived through that same thing that we all did and went through their nodal return with Saturn and Pluto on top of their North Node in Capricorn, and Pluto at the exact position of 26 degrees of Capricorn that we are in right now. Which would mean, if we actually look at it, Pluto 1284, then Pluto 1517 into 1518, but that was at the beginning. So you'd have to go to like 1517, 1520 in there to get where we're at now. And that's when you start getting into the changes in the world. Oh, wait, so 1517, so no, we have to go farther. We have to go to like 1530s, 1534, 1533 in there to get to where Pluto is, where it's at now. And that's when you start getting into the split of Catholicism and Christianity, or Protestants, basically. And so that's interesting that we're going through it all at once now. When Dante did this work, and at the time and when Saturn and Pluto were happening, there was already a major split between, in the Crusades of, and this is what I cover in Age of Deception, but it was the Christians that were fighting for the Holy Land, and it was against the Muslims, right? So there's that big fucking, battle that was going on there. There was no divide in Christianity, except later on, when there was a divide in it by the protectors of Christianity being killed for spreading their work. And we're going to go into that a little bit near the end. But if we could zoom out, Craig. So that hole, I hope you all look at that hole. That's not just a hole. What is a hole? A hole is that it's not whole, literally. All they did is add a W to whole, right? To make it whole. And then you just remove the W and you get a hole. Which is interesting that wrathful is right before that. So when we get to those top ladders, to the lustful and the gluttonous, and you get to the top, which is paradiso, the earthly paradise, if you get to the top of that, which is where I think a lot of the things that are going on, especially with people that are bringing up, whether it's, you know, the child trafficking or stuff like that, there's something kind of weird that there's these weird forces and people that are living what they're idealizing as an earthly paradise, with the top of the ladder of contemplation in their life being the lustful. So if we could zoom into the very top of the painting. That it's empty up there too. That lust without true love. I mean, it's kind of weird that it actually looks like both female or male anatomy parts, one receiving, one giving, but there's an emptiness about it too. And so it's like the idea of sex or an orgasm, and this is all going to come up in 2022 a lot with the nodes moving into Taurus and Scorpio, and especially with Jupiter and Neptune that are going to be conjunct, is people are going to start to get more into this part of the story. The slothful will have been moved on, and gluttony and so forth are going to become extreme, or the lustful, or, you know, because of this story that they're trying to use to keep you into purgatory, right? Like, you know, it's going to create, like, you're not allowed to go see this person or be in love with that person. They have the shot, you don't. So you're not allowed to be with them. You're not allowed to, you know, this is the crazy shit that's going to start to happen. And in many ways, it's keeping you in purgatory and, like, going to force people to go be lustful and go find, you know, and you know, it's kind of disgusting and sick to me that people would actually start to look at people like, well, you're vaccinated, I'm vaccinated, like, you're so hot. Because it changes the idea of what true divine love is and takes you out of the story and puts you into purgatory. That people, and, you know, I've already seen it on dating sites, like, I'm vaccinated. Like, that's nice. Do you have herpes? I, you know, like, do you have AIDS? Like, I mean, like, you know, like, no concern about that. That's part of the joke I always do, right? Like, you know, or like, do you believe in, like, freedom and God and love? Or, like, you know, it's how girls are like, I'm looking for a guy with a dog, no cats. Or I'm looking for a guy with, you know, a job, stable job. You know, it's like this lustful energy of, like, false lust, which is like, you're vaccinated. And that happens on the other side too. Like, you know, well, I'm unvaccinated and you're unvaccinated, right? It's creating division. And that's why I brought up Neptune at the beginning of this, is we're seeing the division even in the structures as Pluto is finishing in Capricorn here, which 2023, Pluto comes into Aquarius. In 2024, it officially enters in and stays, which is why I end each 5-year cycle with some sort of crazy weird thing that happens to be in 5-year cycles, which 5 is no coincidence that Mercury in Hermetic alchemy is the representative of Mercury, 5. And so that's why I use Mercury. And it's weird that the astrology gives me 5-year cycles. I don't follow Saturn's 7-year cycles. I do, of course, as an astrologer, but in my way of presenting to you, it's 5. So we're going to get out of this and we're going to move on to remembering this 2012 prophecy, right? And understanding the duality of the shift that happened on December 21st of 2012 in the galactic alignment, that the sun now reached the ecliptic of the galaxy. And we are now, and I'm going to stand up for this one, Craig, so maybe you can put on a wide camera, but, you know, this is, it depends, 13,000 to 12,000. So either it's 6,000 or 7,000 years, depending on how you want to look at it. But, you know, I use the 12,000 model, but 6,000 years under, this is the galaxy. So it's a disk, it's a plane, right? And so December 21st, 2012, the sun reaches this point. But I've also shown in the 3D versions of how, if you were to look at the galactic center, we saw at that time the buildup of Pluto reaching that, and then Jupiter and Saturn all coming. So if I was looking at this from a bird's eye view of the sun looking at the galaxy, not only are we at the exact line of equinox, which would be equal day, equal night, equal of high or low, that we are in the middle, just like in purgatory with the sun in the galaxy, but we are in trying to contemplate both sides of the galaxy and the dark and the light. That's why it feels more like dark and light ever. This is another weird thing, not only from this 5-year cycle from 2018 to 2023 and being in the middle, and I could put this sun right in the middle, but if I were to again put that 5 years there and that 5 years there and bring them all into the middle, and that 5 years is where we start to rise, and the 5 years prior to this is where we were, and the 5 years we're in now is in the middle.
That's when you start to see fucking battles. That's when you start to see fucking battles of justice. That's when you start to see people having to like lose their justice. It's this falled sun. Venus and Virgo opposed Neptune. So it's a falled Venus. It's a Mercury retrograde. It's fucking bad. Oh, and that Mercury retrograde, by the way, in Scorpio is opposed to Uranus and Taurus at its fall position. Like, I am giving everybody my Paul Revere moment right now. You can come up with every excuse you ever want. I fucking gave you 3 years. I gave you every deep astrology I fucking mentioned it till I fucking stopped because people weren't gonna follow me anymore. They thought I was fucking nuts. And you know what? Not even my team knows it. You don't even know how many nights I've cried fucking myself to sleep because I'm like, fuck. Am I crazy? Am I crazy? Am I really doing more harm than I'm doing good? I don't know why Spirit's telling me to do this. November 30th, we have a lunar eclipse in Gemini with the North Node. This will be a lot of weird factual stuff. There's a lot more positive coming in this zone, but you have to remember that Jupiter doesn't enter Aquarius till December 19th. But I think that this tail end of the year is when it does get crazy, but it does also bring us to a point to where there's a breaking point in the system. There's a breaking point in this Monopoly game. But what my deep truth is to you is, which tribe do you sit with? Because unfortunately with Uranus and Taurus, we don't see the tribes come together till the end of it, or especially at the end when it comes to the last minute, because Taurus is lazy. So it's a long battle, and it's going to be a long battle, and this is what the 2020s look like. But in your 2020...
The masters of this reality that use this transit to clean up what is not useful in the system anymore. That's cryptic, but it's factual astrological data and truth that scares the shit out of me as an astrologer.
Why?
Because like any system, and this is why I think people feel the fear of, like, let's say the Amazon that was on fire today. This is way bigger, that the universe is about to come in and be like, are you useful? Did you come? Because there's a lot of energy that wants to come in here and do great things. So there's a cryptic clean out.
This is an old slide, and how does the real meaning of poor apply today? Because some people, it's a long video, I know, but I'm just going to cut down to that. You know, we talk a lot about financial and economic needs, and people are wondering, this is where I'm starting to address the things that high vibers wanted to know about your economic aspects. You make money by not feeling that you're poor, and no, I'm not saying poor because you don't have money. Poor was not the opposite of rich, but rather the opposite of potent. So when you're not potent, Taurus, right? The smell is potent. That's good fragrance. That's Taurus, right? So I don't buy cheap cologne. And no, Craig, I don't buy Armani Exchange cologne. I love Craig. We have the funniest jokes with each other. But I like to buy the real fucking French potent shit from France. Not even American cheap alcohol-based stuff. Which refer to military and social power. So who has all the money? Oh, whoever's in control of the military and the social power? That means you're potent if you have that. So take it today that you have military, which is Mars. You have your own identity and you have social power over yourself, meaning that you control your own social narrative because you stay to your truth of identity. That's with people who have money and power in life, are people who do not be followers and follow the narrative, but stand up and speak for themselves and don't fall into peer pressure and control the social norms within their own identity and own that within themselves and listen to the divine only. To be poor was to be humble or powerless. And I believe that humbleness is wonderful, and it is an extremely, and especially compassion mixed with humbleness. But you have to also know that it did not equate to economic need, the term poor. It meant like you don't have the power to step into your own truth. You're weak and powerless because you're too humble to own your power. And that is something that is the reason why the Knights Templar were killed, was because they now became a competitor, not of economic need, even though they tried to say they were, because they started getting currency and shit like that. So watch out. And I'm a crypto person, but watch out. Right? Once the banks start getting fucking beat, once Apple just got beat, once the government start getting beat, once the stock market gets beat, oh, that's the Knights Templars, or those in these other realms. But it was because they stood up for their military and social power, which was for God and for the people that wanted to come to the Holy Land and be part of Jesus's death and where he did his work. In the social context of the early 12th century, secular power lay with those who bore arms. So this goes into the gun control thing today. And those who commanded them. Since the early centuries of Christianity, public sinners who had committed grievous acts such as murder, adultery, and apostasy were obligated by religious authorities to renounce arms forever, among other forms of penitence. There were those who, although completely innocent of such crimes, voluntarily subjected them. I can't read the bottom line because it's not showing up on here. Maybe you can zoom into the very bottom. Subjected themselves to the same program of atonement as an act of piety, which means I'm going to be humble and do the right thing because, you know, I can't stand all the shootings and I can't whatever. And you know what? I'm not here. Here you go. And I'm doing the right thing for God. But who's in power is the person that's controlling the social power and the social dynamics. So with Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius, another part of purgatory is you giving away your power, whether it's arms, whether it's giving away anything that you're not even committing a crime for. I'm not committing a crime by wearing a mask. That's not a law. It's a mandate. It's a recommendation. You're giving your power away being like, you know what? Everybody else is doing it, so I'm going to fucking put it on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, everybody else is quarantining, so I'm going to quarantine even though I'm listening to scientists and doctors that are all being censored everywhere, but we're only hearing one central voice. Don't be afraid to be a Templar Knight. And don't think that Friday, why do you think they just throw for Halloween and for all things Friday the 13th? It is subjected into your brain, into your mind, that you should never be this because they all were killed for doing that, for following their potency of themselves. So you want to make money in your life? You want to have a better family life? You want to have a better life? Be potent. And don't be afraid of being killed because that's not going to happen because that transit that happened with Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter in 1284 into 1285 was with the was the north node. So we were bound to fail, and Uranus was in Cancer opposing that transit, meaning it was against the people and their safety. We had it with trine to Uranus and with the south node, meaning it's the illusion that there's a potent energy out there when it's the weakest energy trying to trick you into giving away your potency. So in the end, don't worry, there's a couple more slides, but in the end, you really are awake. But to be really awake is realizing that Saturn here is the controller of the reality, and he wants control of this reality, and that you are chained to divinity, but the idea from the below level is that you are chained. Right? Use the devil card in tarot. You're chained. Oh my gosh, you're chained. The woman is chained in her feminine energy, and she's a reflector of the light, that the light comes from the stars, see, of the masculine, from his genitalia, and that he wears the sun and the moon, and he's changed. But she has the antelope with the moon and the reflective energy and the receiving energy and the grace, whereas the man is sitting with the courageous lion and the masculine. We have that in both of us as male or female or anything. But when you start drawing out the lines of dark and light, and you start bleeding into gray, you start going into purgatory more. So everything, and this is very controversial, but everything that is being subjected in social power right now, about everything trying to take you away from the dark, the light, the masculine, the feminine, and bleed everything into the middle, is taking you away from being able to be connected to here, because that is the only way we are connected, not chained. And allowing a central force that has the military and the social power, but the potency that is not. He's weak. Kronos is weak. He has to banish his father and take control, and his son has to fucking take him out, Jupiter. And unfortunately, with the South Node in Sag all year, and still with Jupiter, even though it's in Aquarius, and now it's going to come into Neptune's home, Poseidon will rule.
And I'm not one here to say a religion's wrong or religion's right, but it's about how people project their belief systems onto others, and feeling of this end-all be-all fatalistic knowing that if you don't do this, you'll end up there. Where there's something different about being an astrologer and giving this information out, is that I'm giving you the information whether you want to take it or not. There's no judgment from an astrologer. It's just, as an astrologer, we are using data and history, and we are using predetermined planetary positions and understanding lots and lots of historical data of understanding, well, what happens when this happens in history? How many years? What are the other cycles? And one thing that's beautiful about the planets is it literally takes tens of thousands of years for them all to be in the same spot, like at all. Like, so you're never seeing the same scenario. It's a chessboard with a completely different set of pieces in different places, and certain pieces out and certain pieces in. So, you know, this is something where being non-judgmental of people, their beliefs, their ways of life, and watching as the world is shifting to not create stigma, which actually is what is going to create more of censorship. And also for yourself to find the empowerment in yourself to know what feels right to you, and to not go into anything that makes you feel that you're going to be somewhat subjected to, you know, a way of life to where you have to be a certain way, you have to live a certain way, you have to, you know, follow this order of life. Because I think that there's going to be the deepest illusionary fear that something is here, something that we have to deal with, that if we don't deal with this, we're done. And I think that when you start to get into that, there's a manic element to it, like a hypomanic belief system that's going to explode onto people, and it's going to be transferred through, you know, a fear aspect. And I think that it's very important for people to be prepared for this fear. I mean, we saw a lot of this fear after 9/11 and how intense it was, and that was with the eclipses in these spots. Like, and this is even way more intense. So I'm not predicting a 9/11, but I'm predicting the energy of like this fear of safety and how this is going to be done and all that stuff. And then, you know, it's funny, and when you look in politics today and how, you know, politicians try to say, no, I didn't vote for that war. You know, they want nothing to do with what was taking place. But at that time, if you did not take that course of action, you were looked at as like, you know, a non-patriot, or that you didn't care about New York City or America or anything like that. So this is really going to be a testy time. The other thing, of course, to prepare for is that people are going to be civilly unrested as far as when it comes to divisive beliefs, but also in, you know, spiritual ideology to science and to what is factual. And there's going to be so many debates. Like, it's almost like a civil war happening within, you know, every corner of our consciousness in our human way. And we have to remember that we're human at this, you know, end of the day. And so that's why the relationships we choose are so important, because one thing that's very scary about Neptune is it's about to head exactly to the position it was in 2020, where it was in 1692 during the witch trials. So it's like we're getting all being put under witch trials. And I think that the one thing to not be afraid of, but you have to also, as an astrologer, present this to people of what could be there. And I'm not trying to use this as a fear-mongering thing, but I'm trying to help people understand that you don't have to go through this, is slavery, the slavery of your soul. The slavery of your soul to whether that is like corporate slave camps and work, to slavery under an ideology or a belief system that you must follow, that we have to keep the wide open array of information from all people. And that's one thing that freedom and liberty represents extremely.